Zach Hyman, he's a right shot, plays on his left side. Can you talk about your experience on having players on their off wings and what really differs from them playing on their strong side?
Well, some players have the ability to adapt better than others, for starters. And Zach is a guy that forehand, backhand on the wall, his puck play is solid. You know, he's more. There's a lot of players around him when he moves. A lot of players on his back. Some of them like to. There's guys that go on their forehand. They like speed on the outside, and they get allows them to get more free ice. Zach does more things without free ice, in smaller spaces. So it takes away the differential of strong side or weak side. But there are players, there's wingers that they're better on their forehand. They receive pucks better. They skate with it better. Hyman is more. He's on a muddy track. He's from a horse perspective. He's on a muddy track, and he doesn't matter which. He's just going to work. So it doesn't affect his play.
15 points in his opening 20 games. Has he come as advertised?
Very much so, because what he does from a coaching standpoint, he touches so many parts of the game. You know, he's a key on our power play. He's a key on our penalty kill. You can play him out there in the last minute defending, and you got him on the ice last minute trying to score a goal. And he's a reliable player. When he goes over the boards, you know what you're getting.
Dave, any update on Duncan Keith? Obviously not in practice. Is he day-to-day?
Yeah, him, Keith, Nurse, Shore, Holloway, Smith all skated before the group today.
Which one's getting back soonest?
Well, there are a variety of different injuries. So I think Nurse and Keith are probably the two that I would say are going to be the closest. Smith he's been on the ice 4 days in a row now. We'll see where he gets the next few days. Today was the first day he stopped pucks, so we'll see where he gets to. Shore is still probably a week. I wouldn't say he's a player this week, but I wouldn't rule him out for next week. Skating and he's got to get up to speed, and both Nurse has got to get cleared. I think he's having another test today or scan today, and then Duncan is just a matter of how he feels. It's the first time he skated in 4 days today, so we'll see where he came out of it.
Was that just a fluke thing? It looked like it was his back, but it could be something where he didn't get hit in the play.
You know what it was? He aggravated an old injury.
As an old guy, he aggravated an old injury?
No, old, I meant 2 weeks.
Oh, I see.
2 weeks old, not old guy.
Okay. I'm an old guy, that's why I asked. In Broberg's case, you're playing him a lot. Do you look at him differently when you get some of your injured guys back who play on the left side and say, I got to keep playing this guy because he's playing well, or does he immediately move to the back of the line when all the other guys get back?
He's playing a lot of a necessity right now. Those guys come back, they'll play ahead of him. He's a good young player, but let's be realistic.
And Holloway, he just looks like he can't do anything with his hand, obviously.
Starting to do. He's got a little bit of motion in it now. He saw the doctor today. He got cleared to do a little more, so that's a positive sign. I don't think he'll play before Christmas still, but he's starting to use his hand, which is a little better.
Sidney Crosby will be here on Wednesday. Do you always enjoy Crosby against, McDavid? They'll both be in the Olympic team.
I think anybody, coaches, teammates, fans, everybody enjoy seeing great players play, right? That's part of what makes the game so great. So you get Crosby is a guy that I've been a fan of his for a long, long time. He's an unbelievable player, and obviously Connor and Leon both are, upper echelon players like that. It's great to see them all on the same ice at the same time.
Dave, because I know you track a lot of your own scoring chances and then goals against. When you combine all this stuff, how do you balance between scoring chance, repression, and then a guy who just doesn't give up a lot of goals. How do you balance that? If some guy's out there for a lot of scoring chances, but they're not resulting in goals, is that on the defenseman? Like, is that a skill, or is that just luck?
There's no luck in my chances. You have to be involved in one or the other. You can't just be on the ice and feel good about yourself and not have an impact on the play. Those stats mean nothing to me.
Okay, so when you're tracking it, and the reason I'm using this is a guy like Chris Russell. Chris Russell, for the public ones, his goals against is quite good. He's on the ice, there's shots, but they don't result in goals. Do you see a correlation for that from your statistics, that maybe he just gives up outside shots? Can you maybe dig deeper as to why he's on the ice and there's not a lot of goals against the last few years?
Well, those numbers play out when you calculate how many chances, actual chances. Like a chance to me just isn't you can have a shot on goal that's not a chance, right? So where the chances are coming from is a big part of that, so you get an inside chance, and Chris Russell's probably a good barometer. There's a lot of outside chances when Chris is on the ice. He blocks a lot of chances that don't turn into chances, but he doesn't let people inside. You're a defenseman that all of a sudden you get lots of stuff inside. Now you're at the root of the problem. Rusty is a good, solid defender, right? He doesn't get out of position much. He's not the biggest guy. There's some times when he can get overpowered in a situation, but smarts and grit of trying to deter something, he does a good job at it, and that reflects in the real scoring chance stats.
And lastly, you've talked earlier that you don't look at changes as a demotion sometimes. It's for a lot of different reasons. Jesse had one of his best games in Vegas on that line. What did you like about the move between him? Because I know just because you do it in November doesn't mean it's going to happen all year long. Can you talk about that move and why you made it and why you felt it worked out?
I talked to Jesse. You know what? Jesse's a really good player. He's an upper echelon player. He's not a young player anymore. He's coming into, but he can drive. Like we talk about McDavid driving his own line. We talk about Draisaitl driving his own line. Jesse can drive a line. And the way Mac's playing right now, I talked to Jesse about this, is take some leadership role and see if we can drive a third line, see if we can get a more balance to it. And I love the way Jesse played the other night. He played fast, he went to the net, created, he had a nice goal on a breakaway, but it was more than that. The line was a factor in the game. So Jesse's not just a complement player, he's a driver. And everything that we do stats-wise backs that up. So why not try to use him more as a driver rather than a complement player? And that's what we're trying. Whether it stays that way, we'll see. Maybe somebody else steps into the driver's seat of that line. That happens, right? But right now, we're trying to find that balance.
Connor McDavid grew up in that generation of players that watched Sid and idolized Sid, and Sid was the best guy, but he was a kid. Do you see, in the way McDavid conducts himself and the way his career has gone, any influence from Crosby? Do you see any Crosby in McDavid?
You would probably have to ask Connor that, but if you look at the way they've come up is very similar, because they're great players, that goes without saying, dominant players in their own right, but the atmosphere and the aura around them is something that they have to manage. They manage every day. And Sid has learned to do that from a young player, and I think Connor's learned to do that. The maturity as they come in and deal with situations, deal with expectations, deal with media, deal with outside pressures, are all real for those players. And it's different from other players. Like, let's not sugarcoat that. It's very different. And it's how they handle it, how they prepare. Like, the one thing that's always been said about Sid is he's a true pro. He prepares right. Off-season, in-season, health-wise, fitness-wise, thinking-wise, always trying to get better. He prepares right. You could say those exact same things about Connor.
Connor is, for the first time in his career, he's a plus 50% guy on the face-off circle. He's 53%, I think. Is that just sort of one example of,
Remember that? I think it was 7, 8 years ago, they were talking about the same thing about Sid. Same thing, right? Exactly the same thing. So you're hitting the nail on the head. Those players like that, they find those areas where they want to improve or can improve, and they make sure they do. And that's just all about not just meeting outside expectations, but meeting their own expectations. Their own expectations are probably higher than anybody else's expectations, which makes them great, great players.
Dave, just one more on Broberg, if I can. How has he handled that increase in tempo and physicality that you talked about when he first came up?
Handle mentally or physically? How do you want to?
Well, just in the game, how has he handled those moments where he's more under pressure from forecheckers than he might have been in the AHL?
He's done well sometimes, and sometimes he's a little behind. That's just part of learning. You know, he's if you look at Pugliarvi's goal the other night, he goes in, gets things shut down, and creates a loose puck for our centerman to get. And there was 4 or 5 times in the game when he was late getting things shut down, and things got a little more chaotic than they should have in our own end. So that's just part of being a young defender playing big minutes.
Dave, getting back to Crosby for one question. To me, he's got the best backhand in the league. He comes in on a guy, gets one step on him, and he roofs a lot of backhands. Is that just a skill that he has that other players don't have?
Well, he has a lot of skills that other players don't have. That's probably one. You know, that's been one of his attributes, strong attributes that sets him apart for sure. I mean, we talk about Draisaitl all the time in the backhand, forehand, backhand. Sid's been like that a long time. You know, he has ability to make something where other players maybe don't have the wherewithal to get something done on the backhand. He does.